All right, let me ask you this. Would you go see a movie with Kevin Spacy in it? How about a movie with Bill Cosby? If you was in a movie, would you go see the movie with Bill Cosby? How about O.J. Simpson? You know, he's been in some movies. Got a story about a movie coming out featuring Kevin Spacy, and it's an interesting question. Based on what we now know about Mr. Spacy, actually a lot of people have suspected as much for years. There's been a lot of scuttlebutt on the streets of Hollywood about this guy for a long time, and just recently we found out certain things. But how would it affect your interest in a movie that happened to have this guy in it, if he was a star for that matter? Because it looks like it's actually going to happen. Number here is 663-1270. 663-1270. My name is Jim Walsh, and this is Super Talk 1270. Streaming anytime online at supertalk1270.com. Now, Kevin Spacy, there was that movie a while back, a few months ago, called All the Money in the World, and he was replaced in that movie. They actually did kind of a CGI thing where they brought in Christopher Plummer, who's a wonderful actor, by the way. And from what I hear, he did more than a decent job as the character. But Kevin Spacy is going to be in another movie that's coming out, and they're keeping him in. Vertical Entertainment, production company behind the drama called Billionaire Boys Club, has explained why they didn't give Christopher Plummer the call. In a statement to The Wrap, which I would assume is some kind of online movie gossip thing, a spokesperson for the company said, "We hope these distressing," they go through the usual, we hope the allegations and we support the victims, blah, blah, don't condone sexual harassment, blah, blah. Let's get right to the key point here. At the same time, this is neither an easy nor insensitive decision to release this film in theaters, but we believe in giving the cast, as well as hundreds of crew members who worked hard on the film, the chance to see their final product reach the audience. And the company adds, in the end, we hope audiences make up their own minds as to the reprehensible allegations of one person's past, but not at the expense of the entire cast and crew present on the film. Obviously, they're invoking the Roseanne thing as well here. The whole thing with Roseanne, and she said what she said, you monkey, and they pulled her off the show. They pulled the show off, and now they're talking about some kind of spin-off show, maybe starring John Goodman with Laurie Metcalf. You wonder what they're going to do with Roseanne, if they're going to kill her off. Let's not go there. Oh, boy, you think I'm in trouble now. But, okay, so this movie's coming out it's a movie about a bunch of guys who start a Ponzi scheme. You know what a Ponzi scheme is? It's what they call a pyramid scheme. And it stars some names you would know. Emma Roberts, the niece of Julia Roberts. Far better actor than Julia, in my opinion. She's in it. Also, Rosanna Arquette, who is a face you would probably recognize. She was in that movie with Madonna, Desperately Seeking Susan. A very familiar figure on TV. Her sister is also an actress. But anyway, it's going to hit video on demand on July 17th. Now, Kevin Spacy is getting something of a return from exile in this movie. It will be in the theaters. It's going to go in the theaters. And this is interesting. It hits the video before it goes in the theaters. Am I reading this correctly? Apparently, yeah. Video on demand July 17th, and then it's going to be in the theaters after that in August. Now, that's weird. Unless they're hedging their bets here, they're thinking, well, let's see how it plays with the on-demand thing. You know how that works. That's a great feature. My wife and I, we love our on-demand at home. You turn to Channel 1, and you get all these options for movies. movies that have very recently run in the theaters. We've seen some not first run, but second run movies from like the last 6 months, like the most recent Star Wars movie, not the Han Solo piece of crap, but the other one, the good one that came out before that, the one where Luke Skywalker, spoiler alert, gets killed. That one, and the one before that where Han Solo, spoiler alert, gets killed. We saw those movies at home on demand just a couple of months after they had had their run in the theater. It's a great deal. So I guess that's what they're going to do. They're going to have this Kevin Spacey movie. They're going to run it on the on-demand channels around the country and I guess see how it goes. And then they'll put it in the theater, which, of course, is usually the total opposite of the way they normally do these things. You put it in the theater first, get all the money you can out of that. But anyway, so would you see a movie with Kevin Spacey? I think I would. Maybe not this one necessarily. It's not a subject that really floats my boat. But if there was a movie coming out that I saw and there was something about it that piqued my interest, and I noticed Kevin Spacey was in it, that in and of itself would not stop me from going to see it. Well, what about you? What's your take? 663-1270. You know, it's nothing new, the thing of Hollywood stars being involved in really nasty scandals. You know, you got the Roseanne thing now, and you've got far worse than the Roseanne thing. You've got the allegations against people like Kevin Spacey, and you got the thing going on with Bill Cosby. You had O.J. Simpson a few years ago. But the way I look at it is, okay, they've got their business with the courts, and they've got their business with Hollywood. It's two separate things. As Elvis once said to Nixon, well, sir, you got your show to run and I got mine. I'm not going to say render to Caesar that well. I just did, actually. But what I'm saying is, okay, Kevin Spacey, he supposedly did these things, but he is a good actor. And his presence in a movie is not going to motivate me not to go see it just to prove a point. If it's a movie I want to see, I'm going to go see it, not worry about it. Maybe you feel differently. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your take on this if you do. Number here is 663-1270. 663-1270. Your comments also welcome on the Facebook site. Super Talk 1270 Facebook page. Get on there and like us. We'll like you back. And get you on the mailing list, the email list for a lot of good stuff, a lot of good things coming up. But what about seeing a movie with Kevin Spacey? There's one coming up, and he is in it, and they kept him in it. Would you go see it? All other factors being equal, would you go see a movie with somebody like Kevin Spacey in the movie? You tell me. 663-1270. Jim Walsh on Super Talk 1270. supertalk1270.com. More conversation, your calls coming up.
Ain't it bleak when you got so much nothing?
So, a movie's coming out with Kevin Spacey in it. They're not going to replace him. They're not going to put Christopher Plummer in there with the CGI thing. They're going to keep him in. They said, yeah, we're aware of the charges, but, you know, a lot of people put a lot of effort into making this movie. We think it's a good movie. So we're going to put it out and let the public decide for themselves. And we hope they'll at least give it a look and judge the movie on its own merits. You know, I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem. Would I see the movie? All other factors being equal, if I wanted to see the movie, having Kevin Spacey in it would not stop me from going to see the movie. 663-1270. Jim Walsh at Supertalk 1270. Online at supertalk1270.com. There have been cases of movies in the past. I mean, again, this is nothing new. You know, if you study the past, as Oliver Stone once said. In the 1920s, there was an actor named Fatty Arbuckle who was accused of doing all kinds of horrible things involving women. He was exonerated, by the way, eventually. But the point is, it ruined his career, and he died a broken man. But does it have to be that way? No, I don't feel sorry for Kevin Spacey, but I do have sympathy for all the people involved in making the movie, just like I have sympathy for all of Roseanne's co-stars, and I hope they find a way to work it out for their sake. Roseanne, I've never really been a Roseanne fan anyway. But if a movie came out and it was something I wanted to see, if it was the genre of, I'm a science fiction buff. I like science fiction movies. I like Cold War thrillers. I like movies with nuclear bombs going off. So if there was a movie that came out and it had Kevin Spacey and a nuclear bomb going off, even if Kevin Spacey was setting off the nuclear bomb, I'd probably go see it. Not because of him, not even necessarily in spite of him. I would just go see it to see the movie, and I would judge it on its own merits. Nobody hired Kevin Spacey with the idea of proving a point. This was actually before all the nasty stuff came out. So why are you going to blame everybody else that's involved in the movie? Ain't going to bother me none. Yeah, I see a movie with Kevin Spacey. Movie's called... what's the name of the movie? Billionaire Boys Club. And it's about a group of young men who run a Ponzi scheme. Ponzi scheme, another fancy word for a pyramid scheme. Like the Glenn Turner and, was it Glenn Turner? Was he the Ponzi guy? Or was he the, I knew he was kind of a shady character, but was that his thing, that Dared to Be Great? Or was he, there's a white supremacist guy who has a very similar name. It's like Miller or Turner. Anyway, I had a friend who was directly involved with this guy, Glenn Turner, and he lost a lot of money. But again, Kevin Spacey, yes, there are accusations, and if he's convicted, he will pay the price. That's all out of my control. I'm just interested in being entertained. Especially in light of the fact that he was in the movie. The movie was made before all this stuff came out. Number 663-1270, 663-1270. Speaking of movies that may get a bad rap, have you heard about this John Travolta movie about John Gotti? Remember John Gotti, the Teflon Don? He was an organized crime figure. He was big in New York in the 80s. He died a few years ago, I think. And he was like one of these real-life Godfather types. And they called him the Teflon Don because they kept throwing everything at him, all kinds of accusations, all kinds of charges, and nothing. They could not make anything stick with this guy. He was that well isolated. Well, John Travolta starred in a movie about Big John Gotti. A biopic, if you will. It opened over the weekend, and it got a big, giant goose egg on the Rotten Tomatoes website. That's one of the big movie review websites on the internet thingy. Well, this week, the official Twitter account for the movie slammed back at the critics, writing, "Audiences loved Gotti, but the critics don't want you to see it. The question is why? Trust the people. See it for yourself." Okay, fair enough. Now, the audience did seem to enjoy the movie more than the pros. The Rotten Tomatoes audience score was 69%. That's it's not fantastic, but it's not the worst rating ever for a movie. So the critics hated it. The people kind of liked it. They didn't rave about it, but they kind of liked it. And, of course, it begs the question, how much credence do you put in what the critics have to say? And I will say I put a lot of credence in what they say, except when I don't. I mean, if Roger Ebert said, this movie's really horrible, you shouldn't see it, chances are I probably wouldn't bother with it. If he said it's an okay movie, it might be worth it if you're into this kind of thing, again, I would probably take that into consideration. But that's as far as it goes. I would take it into consideration. I've never lived or died based on something that a critic says. I'm not anti-critic. I have been a critic. I have been involved in reviewing movies and shows and musical releases. And I'm not anti-critic at all. I have no problem with what they do for a living. It's fine. Somebody's got to do it. It's just part of the entertainment experience when you're reading what a critic has to say, your opinion. The whole point of a critic is, there used to be a guy in my hometown. His name was Otto. He was an old, nasty old German man. Nothing wrong with being German. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying he just happened to be an old German guy. He's a real nasty old guy. This guy despised anything related to youth culture, rock and roll, edgy modern movies, anything like that. He just hated all of it. And it didn't occur to me until years later that, why do they keep this clown on the staff of the newspaper? Well, they kept him on the staff of the newspaper because his reviews, they were so off the wall and out in left field, you should say, that they were entertaining in and of themselves. See, a critic is an entertainer. And I know some people argue they have too much influence. I don't think so. A critic, first and foremost, is somebody, it's kind of like a talk show host. You're here basically to get a rise out of people with your outlandish, pointless opinions. Like the fact that this video game called Active Shooter, it's a game allegedly promoting high school shootings. And it's back online despite a public outcry, and I support their right to put it online and let people see it and play the game if they want to. Is it something I would do? Not really, but I can understand why good people who are not evil, would find some kind of perverse interest in something like this video game. I don't have a problem with it being available to the public. Let the public see and decide for themselves. I mean, if the public, I don't know if there was a movie that actually showed, again, it's all virtual reality anyway. Nobody's actually getting hurt. But I suppose you could say, well, what if there was a movie that actually showed people getting hurt or killed or animals being tortured or women being sexually assaulted? How would you feel about that? Well, I would hope to God that the public at large would vote with their dollars and shoot it down that way. Please pardon the terrible, inappropriate play on words there. I speak from the hip. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes I shoot myself in the foot, so to speak. But it's just a guy with an opinion. All right, that's what a critic is. So don't get down on the critics. They got a job to do, and if you're getting all ticked off at what they say, then they're doing their job. But anyway, so the critics they looked at this John Travolta movie, and let's face it, how many times in his life has John Travolta really been in a good movie? Oh, you had Pulp Fiction, you had Saturday Night Fever. There was that movie he did about the missing missing ICBM, which is kind of a fun movie where he was the pilot. What was that? Broken Arrow, right. Other than that, he hasn't really been in that many good movies. He's been in some real stinkeroos, as a matter. Okay, Grease. Grease was a good movie for what they were trying to do with it. But let's be honest. How many times has John Travolta really been in a good, powerful movie? Generally, it's more the exception than the rule. So if I see a movie with John Travolta, I must admit I'm going to kind of look at it with a skewered eye unless there's a lot of strong, compelling evidence that I should think otherwise. And it really doesn't surprise me that John Travolta's performance in the Gotti movie got panned, even though I haven't seen the movie. You may say it's not fair, but again, we're talking John Travolta. We're talking a movie about John Gotti. Seriously, how good can it be, right?
Right now it's 69.
News and Views with Joel Heitkamp. Weekdays on Super Talk 1270.
Oh, Joe, macaron. Yeah,
Macaroon.
Macaron. Oh,
Macaroon, love and tenderness and macaroons.
Chacaron.
Yeah.
Chacaron.
Makes perfect sense to me. So a movie comes out. Kevin Spacy is in the movie. And, there was that one movie he did right before all the allegations started coming out. And they said, well, we got to take him out of the movie because he's a horrible guy and he supposedly did all these terrible things. And so they put Christopher Plummer in there with the CGI thing. And Christopher Plummer, who's a fine actor, he did a fine job with it. But now there's another movie coming out, and they've pretty much decided that Kevin Spacey's in the movie, and they're just going to leave it there. Just let people judge for themselves. And that's reasonable to me. I never understood the why they had to backpedal so hard on this. I mean, they called the guy, they made the movie. Is there any real evidence that they knew that this guy had done these things? I mean, yeah, there's scuttlebutt in Hollywood. There has been for years, but yeah, there's scuttlebutt about everybody. There's probably rumors going around about, Pat Boone that are not true. God, I wish they were, but they're probably not, unfortunately. Because Pat is a squeaky clean kind of guy. And personally, I still can't get over the fact that we lost Elvis, we lost Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly died young, but we still got Pat Boone. What's that all about? Boy, did I pick the wrong planet for justice. Anyway, the question is, would you see a movie with Kevin Spacey in it? I say, yeah. Not because he's in it necessarily, although he is a good actor. And certainly not despite the fact that it just doesn't bother me either way. I don't have a problem with it. Well, what about you, dear listener? What about you? 663-1270. Your comments welcome. Also, I want to talk about the active shooter video game. Have you heard about this? It's a video game. They say it's promoting high school shootings. What it is, it depicts somebody shooting up a high school. It's one of those games where it's all from the perspective of this person walking through a high school with a gun, shooting people, which sounds to me almost like it's some kind of satire thing going there. They're trying to make some kind of commentary on the American zeitgeist. It doesn't sound to me like any kind of porno-violent game. But the active shooter game, there was a big public outcry about it. It was online. Some people screamed about it. They took it offline. Now it's back online, despite a public outcry led by many members of that high school community in Florida where they had the shooting a couple of months ago. Valve Corporation, they halted the game's production last month, and the game's developer vowed to get the game back on the internet and made good on that promise. The game can be purchased for $20 on Acid Software Marketplace. He says, "You cannot censor us and what we do. Our game does not violate any laws or promote any violence or extremism. It will remain on our website and continue its course." There have been violent video games before, and the key thing to remember here is there's no real violence here. It's all make-believe violence. That, to me, makes a world of difference. And when somebody says they're doing it to make a commentary, or, hell, if they're doing it to make money, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with freedom of expression. The whole point of freedom of expression is to protect the crap. And if this is crap, so be it, but it should be protected. Let people vote. Again, let people vote with their dollars. If people don't want to buy it, they won't buy it. You don't want it in your household, you won't get it in your household. And if somebody else's household, again, I wouldn't worry about it. I've seen games like this before. Back in the 90s, the early 90s, there was a game called Night Trap. It was one of these video games that had some girl that was popular in one of those, I think it was Dana Plato or whatever. She was in one of those popular sitcoms back in the 80s. And they had her co-starring in this. It was about a bunch of sorority girls running around some house. And the house was full of vampires, and the vampires were killing them. And it was really, really ugly, really gory. But it was, because it was so ugly and gory, it was impossible to take seriously. And I really doubt if anybody is going to come to this active shooter thing, and based on this, they're going to get inspired, if they weren't already, to go and shoot up a school. I doubt that very, very highly. Don't think that's going to happen. That's not the way these things work out. But, of course, when there's a tragedy, and Americans, we like to think that we have answers to everything. We like to think we have the easy answers to the complicated problems. The truth is, sometimes, though, we just don't. Sometimes there are no answers. Sometimes there is little, if anything, that can be done. And when I hear people talking about the shootings like the one in Florida and wherever else, And, well, we got to do this, or we got to do this with the guns, or we got to do this with the violent video games, or we got to put religion back in the schools, or we got to take religion, do this, that, and the other. I find hard to take any of that seriously. Again, it's just people grasping at straws or using the latest tragedy du jour to feather their own nest by advancing their own preset agenda. You know, there's these guys, there's these pro-censorship guys, and they've been around for a long time, and every time something like this happens, they come out and they use it to advance their agenda. Well, see, we told you this was going to happen if you didn't stop these people from expressing their opinions, blah, 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 blah. Take that all with a grain of salt, all right? All right? And bear in mind, if it's not that, it would be something else, and eventually it will be something else. And if you want to be safe, if you want your children to be safe, the best way you can do that is to talk to your kids and work it out on your own individual level. You're concerned about shooting in the schools, talk to the teachers, find out what kind of security options are available for the kids. Maybe there's drills like they started in Florida after the shooting there, like the old civil defense drills, which at least gives the kids something to do. It gives them a game plan, which is probably better than nothing. But the bottom line is there's probably not a lot of things you can do to stop this kind of thing from happening. And it does happen, even in countries with proper gun control. It happens. I don't want to get on the gun thing here. I'm just saying that there comes a point where you have to say, well, the odds are that I will never be affected by it, or my children will never be affected by it, and I can hope or pray, if you will. If you're a praying person, I'm not, but if you are, there you got that too, I guess. And you just have to decide for yourself how you're going to deal with it on your own individual level. Because let me tell you, the government's not going to do diddly squat for you. But anyway, and taking away somebody's right to publish a stupid game like this is probably not going to do anything to save any lives anytime in the future. So, the active shooter video game, is that something you could get into? Or do you think it should be taken away? Should you think it be taken off the internet? 663-1270. Love to get your thoughts on that. You know, 20 years ago, it was the Night Trap game. 10 years before that, it was something else. 10 years before that, it was something else. There's always something. There's always something going on in the news, something really popular that these people can latch on to and say, see, this is what's wrong with society. And if you take that away, everything will be fine. Everything will be okay, and we'll be right. Make us king of the world before it's too late. Only it never really does work that way, does it? No. Remember Tipper Gore? I'm still trying to forget Tipper Gore, but there was that whole thing. Some other miscellaneous business. You know, we get to that time of the hour where we have a whole bunch of stories that don't really merit any long, drawn-out conversation. But, maybe a comment or two, and maybe a comment from you as well. You know, it seems like every year, graduation time, we just passed it, and every town has one or two schools where you have at least one member of the senior class who dies before graduation. Now, bear with me. Not making a joke here. Please don't think that. And when it happens, the class yearbook always has some memorial, hopefully a fitting one, to the departed classmate. My own senior year, that was not the case. I guess we were lucky in that regard. But the first fatality in my graduating class came actually 3 or 4 years after the graduation. And I won't go into that in any detail, but both, some people, their college and high school yearbooks, they have tributes to the classmates. Well, there's a middle school in Minnesota, not too far from here, that has actually dispensed with that, much to the surprise of the family of one child who committed suicide. The school left the boy out of the yearbook. And that was followed by the school rebuffing attempts by the family to do something at the school in the boy's memory. You know, plant a tree, put a bench up, put up a photo in the main hallway there. Well, the school now says they had no intent to leave him out, but they did. And the family says it's too late now that the school missed a chance to use the boy's death to educate the classmates and parents about mental health. So what should the school do to make this right? 663-1270. You tell me. 663-1270. Jim Walsh on Super Talk 1270 and supertalk1270.com.
Right now it's 78.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
I got a new twist on this song today.
Well, my body could use a little slimming. I keep my shirt on when I go swimming. And I ain't seen my feet since 1984. Ow! The old lady wants to roll in the hay. We turn the lights down all the way.
Puppy monkey, baby.
Because I don't look good naked anymore. No, I don't look good naked anymore.
I think this situation absolutely requires a really futile and stupid gesture.
Keep on like I'm doing. I won't fit through the door, and I don't look good naked anymore.
Well, I got a story here out of Fargo that puts a whole new spin on that song. North Dakota has made history this week with its first ever fully realized gender reassignment surgery.
Ow!
Brianna Cassidy, age 33, formerly a man, now a woman, lives in the Fargo area. There's a big write-up today. And I'm mentioning the write-up because there is a picture with this. The Fargo Forum website, inforum.com. I warn you ahead of time, steel yourself. It's not pretty. But if you want to read the story and you want to see the picture of this person, the former guy, now turned lady, trans person, how can I describe this? God bless her. God bless her. I mean, more power to her. She wanted this done. You know how these folks are. They just don't feel comfortable in their own skin. So they want to get this surgery. And it used to be you had to go to Europe or something if you wanted to get it. Now, apparently, we can do it right here in good old North by God, Dakota. But anyway, Brianna Cassidy, I wish her well, but I got to tell you, looking at the picture, how can I describe this? Okay, if you're into football, remember a defensive tackle for the Baltimore Ravens named Tony Siragusa. This guy could make a chin strap look ugly. All right? Now, if you remember Tony Siragusa, picture Tony Siragusa in a blonde wig and a muumuu. Yeah. You got it. But more power to her. It's America. I wish her well. Well, Brianna Cassidy said she was 8 or 9 years old, growing up in Iowa, when she realized that despite her outward appearances, she was a girl. She continued to dress like a guy because she didn't want people to, give her a hard time about it. In her late 20s, the now transgender woman decided to embrace her true self and begin a gender transition, and recently completed the final step in doing. And again, the significance here for us is the fact that the entire procedure was done in North Dakota. As far as we know, this is the first time that's ever happened.
I got it wrong.
Not anymore, you don't. The surgery is known as transgender vaginoplasty, in which the most of the naughty bits are removed, and some skin is from the winky is inverted to create the vajayjay. She says if you have the right person, it looks really nice. Then she says, mine does.
Boot to the head.
I'll take your word for it, ma'am. The 6-hour procedure was done by a doctor from the Plastic Surgery Institute in Fargo. He assembled a surgical team at one of the 2 hospitals at which he has practicing privileges. Now, here's the deal. It hasn't been available in North Dakota up until this particular case. Spokesperson at Sanford Health in Fargo said the facility offers hormone treatments that precede the gender reassignment surgery, but when it comes to the surgery itself, Sanford does only the top half procedures. Only the top half. So if you want the bottom half, up to now you've been out of luck completely. And now you can go into the hospital and you come out looking exactly like your mama. And people will probably walk up to you on the street and they'll say, exactly. But anyway, more power to Brianna Cassidy. She says some transgender women opt to, let's skip over some of this here. She says, I think some people are born in the wrong body. For example, well, I don't know about your mama, but after starting the hormone, she says, I became to liking men, and I just wanted to... Yeah, we're done there. After starting these hormones, I became to liking men, and I just wanted to feel as complete as the woman that I was. Why do I hear a Shania Twain song swirling around in the back of my head there? She expects to be away from her job. Let me tell you what she does for a living. She expects to be away from her job as an over-the-road truck driver for about a month. She's a trucking woman. Okay. She continues to cover, the doctor who did this procedure says he did hundreds of gender reassignment surgeries during his residency in Galveston, Texas. I didn't think there was that big a demand for it in Texas, but apparently so. He studied under the very aptly named Dr. Ted Huang. I kid you not. It's a man's name. And he was the man who allegedly pioneered the procedure. Paging Dr. Wong, Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard. In fact, one of our patients, said the doctor, ended up being the centerfold in Penthouse magazine. He's not going to tell you which one. I don't want to know which one it was. Now, gender reassign. And by the way, if you want to reverse the procedure and go back, there is also, we'll talk about that in a minute here. The gender reassignment surgery is not cosmetic or reconstructive, but it's more like reorganization, if you will. You take what's there and you just kind of rearrange everything. And the doctor says you can actually do it as an outpatient procedure. Male to female functionality is incredibly unreal. In 6 months, you won't be able to tell this person was male. Well, I kind of have my doubts about that, but okay. Oh, by the way, the procedure to reverse the reversal, yes, it's called an addictomy.
Well, my body could use a little slimming.
Oh, boy.
I keep my shirt on when I go swimming.
I'll put a brassiere on that,
I
man.
ain't seen my feet since 1984. Ow!
Well, you look different, that's for damn
No,
sure.
I don't look good naked anymore.
And that is just about the name of that tune. Time once again for good to the buckaroos and buckarettes to saddle up the buckboards, crack their whips, and get the hell out of Dodge. Good time here, buddy. Your comments always welcome. At the Facebook page for Super Talk 1270 or at supertalk1270.com. Until next time, this is Jim Walsh saying, until next time, so long. Until next time.